Something is happening behind the silence right now. If you have been feeling it in the last few days, trust that feeling. It is not your mind making up stories. A final choice is slowly forming inside their heart, and your presence is written all through it in ways they can no longer ignore. On the outside, they may still look calm, they may act normal, they may seem distant, controlled, or even cold, but inside, something much deeper is moving, and it is getting stronger day by day. A truth they once tried to avoid has become too heavy to push away now. What they are facing is not small, it is not light, it is not just another passing thought. This is a turning point, the kind that can change the road a person walks from here on. They are standing at the edge of something real, and whether they move toward you or further away, they will not leave this moment as the same person they were before. You need to hear that clearly. The tension you have been feeling has a reason. The distance has a reason, even the silence has a reason. Behind the scenes, an inner battle is reaching its final stage, and it is testing who they truly are. What you are picking up is real. It is not wishful thinking, it is not only hope. It is the quiet pressure of someone wrestling with strong emotion because your presence touched something deep inside them. They are at a crossroads now, and every road somehow leads their thoughts back to you. For a long time they used routines, work, pride, and space to distract themselves. They tried to believe that time would weaken this bond, but some connections do not fade so easily, and the more they tried to bury it, the more strongly it returned. Stay with this because what comes next matters more than it seems right now. For longer than you know, they told themselves a story that helped them stay safe. They said it was not that serious. They said it would pass. They said distance would fix everything, and that life would move on like it always does. But deep bonds do not disappear just because they are ignored. What passed between you was not shallow. It reached parts of them they do not show the world. It touched the deeper layer of identity, the place where a person knows what is true, even when they pretend not to. Now they are doing something they never planned to do. They are going back over everything, every memory, every silence, every moment they felt something and then tried to shut it down. They are not only thinking about what you meant to them, they are also seeing what this whole connection says about who they have become. That is why the energy feels different now. That is why something feels heavier and more serious than before. When a person starts questioning the story they once used to protect themselves, change is already closer than it looks. And this decision is not only about staying or leaving. It goes much deeper than that. It is about whether they are ready to face themselves without the old masks, without the old excuses, without the old shield they used for years. One part of them feels pulled toward you in a way that feels natural, almost impossible to deny. Your absence does not feel neutral to them. It does not feel ordinary. It feels like something is missing, something unfinished, something still calling to them no matter how much they try to move on. But another part of them resists just as strongly, because to admit these feelings would mean becoming vulnerable. It would mean opening up. It would mean dropping the performance of strength and stepping into something more honest. And that kind of honesty can feel frightening when a person has lived behind protection for so long. Keep listening, because this is where the pressure begins to build. That pressure is exactly why the connection may feel more intense now, even while everything stays quiet. They are not simply running from the truth anymore. Slowly, day by day, they are being forced to sit with it. They are starting to ask themselves questions they avoided for too long. Why do you still live in their thoughts? Why does your memory return in quiet moments? Why has no one else replaced the feeling your presence created in them? This is the stage right before clear understanding begins to rise. The mind can only fight itself for so long before it has to choose a side. And when that moment comes closer, the mask begins to crack. If they return, it will not be because things suddenly became easy. It will be because they finally understand the value of what existed between you. They will see that some bonds are rare, and once they are lost, they are not easily found again. And if they walk away, that does not mean you were not enough. It does not mean your love lacked depth. It only means they were not yet ready for the honesty and inner growth that loving you would ask from them. That is why your role now is not to chase. It is not to force. It is not to control what happens next. Let the truth keep doing its work inside them. Let time reveal what words alone never could. What is happening in them right now carries real weight. It is not a passing mood. It is not a temporary confusion. It is a full inner conflict demanding their attention. On one side is the emotional pull toward you, full of memory, longing, and a deep sense of belonging. On the other side is an old protective voice shaped by pain, disappointment, and fear of being hurt again. That voice tells them to stay guarded, to keep distance, to choose safety above all else. And those two forces are now colliding with more power than ever before. No matter how busy they try to stay, they cannot fully escape it. They may throw themselves into tasks. They may fill their days with noise, work, people, and routine. They may even act as if none of this matters, but the harder they push it down, the more it rises. That is because the real struggle was never outside of them. It was always inside. You became a mirror they were not ready for, a person who awakened something real beneath the image they had built. When this connection started, something about it challenged the walls they depended on. It reached the self hidden under control, pride, and careful distance. And now they have a choice in front of them. They can stay inside the limits of the old person they have always been, or they can move toward a new version of themselves, one that asks for courage, softness, and emotional risk. That is exhausting, and that exhaustion shows up in the mixed signals you have been feeling, the hot and cold energy, the sudden closeness followed by silence, the moments when they seem ready to step in, only to pull away again. Sometimes people call this game playing, sometimes it is, but sometimes it is something else. Sometimes it is what happens when a person deeply wants the connection and deeply fears the transformation that comes with accepting it. As this pressure grows, old illusions start falling apart. They can no longer tell themselves you were just a brief chapter. They are being pushed to see you clearly. And even more than that, they are being pushed to see themselves clearly. Old memories keep returning with sharper feeling. Past moments now carry more meaning than before. Even absence speaks louder. Silence becomes heavy. Distance becomes a mirror. And that uncomfortable process matters, because real decisions are not born from endless avoidance. They are born when the fog begins to lift and the heart refuses to stay buried under fear. Do not skip this part, because this is where everything begins to turn. There comes a point when uncertainty becomes too heavy to carry. They are reaching that point now, not because something dramatic changed in the world around them, but because a divided mind cannot stay split forever. For too long, they tried to make the feelings seem smaller than they really were. They told themselves it was manageable. They told themselves it was not that deep. They believed they could control it, hide it, or outgrow it if enough time passed. But feelings with this kind of weight do not stay quiet. They grow in silence. They mature in absence. They wait until they can no longer be denied, and now they are returning in waves, late at night, in quiet rooms, in the stillness after a busy day. They notice how naturally their thoughts drift back to you. No matter what else they focus on, something still feels missing. Your absence created space, and that space forced them to feel the shape of what was lost. Without your energy there to soften the distance, they had to face it directly. The missing warmth, the missing spark, the missing comfort, the missing emotional safety. And when a person finally feels the true weight of what is gone, they stop asking whether it mattered. They start asking whether they waited too long to admit how much it mattered. In private moments, they compare, not always on purpose, not always with words, but they do. They measure what they felt with you against what they feel elsewhere, and the difference keeps speaking for itself. This is not about perfection. It is not about fantasy. It is about depth. It is about how your presence made them feel more alive, more seen, more emotionally awake than they had been in a long time. That is why this process is changing them from the inside. They are moving toward a final choice because they cannot keep living half in and half out. They are beginning to understand that the road forward will require complete honesty. Either they stay hidden in old patterns, or they step into the growth this bond has been calling out of them from the start. Inside them now, fear and desire are standing face to face. No walls left between them. On one side is the warm pull toward you, human and natural, and impossible to fake. On the other side is the fear of what opening up might cost them. That fear may not even come from you. It may come from older wounds, older losses, older times when trust ended in pain. But whatever its source, it still speaks loudly inside them. The difference now is that the desire for truth is starting to sound louder. That shift matters. It means something is moving. It means they are slowly leaving pure defense and stepping toward honest acceptance. This is why the push and pull has felt so strong. One moment they want to surrender to what feels real. They imagine what it would mean to stop resisting and simply follow the heart. Then fear rises again and pulls them back into hesitation. Both sides feel real to them, both sides feel serious. Their longing feels true and their fear feels necessary. So for a while they stay in the middle, not because they do not care, but because they are trying to survive an inner storm. Still, no one can remain in that storm forever. At some point, one side wins. They will either let fear keep them far away, or they will let deeper emotion guide them into unfamiliar ground. This is not only about a relationship, it is about identity. It is about who they choose to become. Until now, they have lived in hesitation, circling the same thoughts, replaying the same memories, reading every sign, trying to control something that has gone far beyond logic. But emotions this strong always ask for an answer in the end. The confusion, the longing, the endless reflection, all of it has been moving toward one clear point of decision. And as that moment gets closer, they may actually seem more distant from the outside. Do not read that too quickly. Sometimes distance is not the ending. Sometimes it is the final stage before truth can no longer be delayed. Stay with me, because this next part explains why the silence may be louder than any words right now. They are beginning to see that living in the middle is draining them. Being neither fully present nor fully gone has become too costly. It steals peace. It burns energy. It keeps them trapped in repeating loops with no real movement. That is why they now feel pushed to take responsibility for what they feel. Responsibility changes everything. It removes excuses. It forces honesty. It asks the question they have tried hard not to face. Are they brave enough to risk the comfort of the known for a connection that asks them to grow? This moment carries a sense of finality because the season of maybe is ending. The time of facing the truth is opening. Deep down, they know this bond is not just another attraction, not just another passing chapter. It marks something important in their life. The hesitation that once felt like protection is starting to feel like a prison. They are realizing that avoidance never really kept them safe. It only kept them stuck, and too much stillness creates its own kind of pain. So now the walls they used for protection are beginning to crack. They can no longer fully deny what lives inside them. They see the distance between how they truly feel and how they have been acting. They remember moments when they wanted to speak and stayed silent. Times when they wanted to come closer and pulled away instead. Moments when pride stood where honesty should have stood. This awareness hurts, but it also gives power, because once that gap begins to close, change stops being only possible. It becomes necessary. The truth is rising in ways they can no longer twist or hide. For a long time, logic was their shield, distance was their shield, silence was their shield, but deep feeling always rises in quiet places. When the world slows down, the connection returns to them again, and now they are starting to see your shared story in a new light. What once looked random now seems meaningful. What once felt like something they could dismiss now feels like something that revealed a more honest version of themselves. They are not only missing you, they are missing who they were allowed to be in your presence. That is why this turning point feels so powerful. The question is no longer whether the bond mattered. The real question is whether they are brave enough to return to the truth it showed them. Even when they stay busy, even when they surround themselves with noise, something inside keeps pulling them back. The protective ego is losing its grip. They are weighing two futures now. One feels safe but empty. The other feels uncertain but alive. And little by little, truth is becoming more valuable to them than fear. A strange stillness is starting to replace the frantic energy of indecision. They are no longer fighting their feelings with the same force. They are starting to accept them. They can now see where pride blocked love, where avoidance created pain, and where silence caused distance that never needed to grow so wide. They are also beginning to feel what this looked like from your side. That matters more than you may realize. Understanding the weight you carried humbles them. It makes it harder to stay cold, harder to hide behind detachment, harder to keep reacting only from fear. A deeper sense of responsibility is entering the picture now, and that changes the energy completely. They are moving from passive confusion into active choice. They know the next step will say something important, not only about the bond, but about the kind of person they choose to be. The old language of maybe, should, and could is burning away. In its place comes a quieter but stronger word, must. They are starting to feel that they must face what is real. They must stop wasting time in emotional paralysis. They must stop pretending that staying frozen costs nothing. This clarity is not only mental, It lives in the body too. A pressure rises every time they think about speaking, reaching out, or telling the truth. Yes, the unknown still scares them, but now the known emptiness of staying disconnected may scare them even more. And when that shift happens, movement becomes much closer. Keep watching this in your own life because the change often begins inside before it ever appears on the outside. Whatever they do next will come after a long private struggle with themselves. Your presence became a mirror that reflected a brighter part of their potential, a part they had forgotten. Even in silence, that effect stayed with them. It cut through the noise. It stayed under the surface. It kept working on them. So the question is no longer whether this touched them deeply. The question is when they will finally act on what they now know. Layer by layer, their uncertainty is falling away. What remains is something solid, something they can no longer easily ignore. They have learned that trying to control or bury these feelings only made the inner fire stronger. The light is on now. And whether they move closer or choose another road, it will come from clarity, not confusion. That matters, because clarity changes the meaning of every next step. A grounded sense of truth is forming inside them, one not so easily shaken by outside voices or old fear. They are standing in front of their own reflection now, seeing what distance has cost, seeing what silence has hidden, seeing that pretending no longer works. If you have been sensing a shift, trust that. The situation is reaching its final stage. They are moving toward a choice that will show whether they are ready to live from truth instead of fear. And your role remains powerful, but simple. Stay centered, stay balanced, stay clear about your boundaries. Do not chase what is already being brought into the light by its own weight. Let them face their own heart without interference. Let them feel the full cost of pretending their feelings are small. Their silence is changing into self-awareness. Their confusion is becoming a more focused path. Soon they will not be able to keep crossing back and forth forever. The moment will come when a clear move must be made. And when that moment arrives, it will reveal more than how they feel about you. It will reveal who they really are when life asks them for courage. This is why the quiet period can be the loudest part of the whole story. So if you have been feeling that something important is building, you are not wrong. The stillness is not empty. The distance is not meaningless. Underneath all of it, a final inner decision is taking shape. They are reviewing what happened. They are facing what they feel. They are questioning the old story that once helped them hide. And the pressure to choose is getting stronger. Some days they may still look unchanged. Some days they may still act far away. Some days you may wonder if anything is happening at all. But deep inside them, the ground is shifting. A person can only resist the truth for so long before the truth begins to remake them from within. That is what this moment is about. Not fantasy, not guessing, not forcing hope where there is none. This is about the real process that happens when someone finally sees that what they tried to push away still lives inside them with full weight. They are being asked to stop running, to stop hiding, to stop calling fear wisdom when it is only fear. And if they are ready, they will move, not because the path is easy, not because all fear disappears, but because they finally understand that some truths cost more to ignore than to face. If they choose distance in the end, let that be their answer, and not a measure of your worth. If they choose truth, let it come from their own courage, not your chasing. Either way, clarity is closer than it has been in a long time. That matters. Hold on to that. Stay calm in your own center. Let the next chapter show itself without force. Because sometimes the most powerful part of the story is not the moment someone speaks. It is the long quiet before the truth becomes too real to hide. And that quiet, the one you have been living through, may be closer to breaking than you think. Right now, more than anything, they are standing between the old life and the honest one. That is the real reason this energy feels so sharp, so heavy, and so difficult to ignore. The old life offers control, routine, and emotional distance. It asks nothing new from them. It keeps everything safe on the surface. But the honest life asks for more. It asks them to admit what they feel. It asks them to take responsibility for what they almost lost. It asks them to stop hiding behind timing, pride, and confusion. And that is why this decision feels final. It is not only about choosing a person. It is about choosing truth over comfort. It is about deciding whether they want to keep surviving inside old patterns or finally start living in a way that is more open and real. That choice changes a person. Once they see clearly, they cannot return to the same blindness. Once they feel fully, they cannot honestly pretend they feel nothing. Once they understand what this bond awakened in them, the old version of denial begins to fall apart. So yes, the silence may still be here for now. Yes, the answer may not have reached the surface yet, but inside them something has already started closing in on a final point. Fear is no longer the only voice in the room. Truth is speaking too, and truth has a way of growing stronger when it is finally heard. So keep your heart steady, keep your standards clear, let them show you who they are through action when the time comes, because what happens next will not come from passing emotion, it will come from a deep private reckoning they can no longer escape. And when a person finally reaches that point, one thing always happens. The mask falls, the choice appears, and the next step, whatever it is, becomes impossible to fake.